Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our monthly webinar for January 30th, this cold day. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate everybody joining us. I know there's a lot of schools that are off today, but we, after talking to the PBIS team, we talked and thought that it's so hard to get dates on the calendar that we were going to just go ahead and start our webinar today and do it, and then we will record it for those that want to come back and watch later. So I do appreciate you guys being with us today, because it is, for many people, it is kind of a day off as the weather's been really cold. We are going to be focusing today on two things. One is going to be the discussion of the clip charts and how Miller School really worked their way away from the clip charts. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the digital warehouse that we've started. It's not complete yet, and it's going to be a work in progress, but we're going to talk about how we want to start collecting and keeping in this digital warehouse some great examples from local schools of what they're doing with their PBIS framework. I think it's going to really help folks both in their implementation and when they're thinking about applying for recognition, what that looks like. So we're going to talk about that today. We have a poll for you to talk about and ask about what you might want to do, talk about next time on our next webinar. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. So why don't we jump right in to our webinar for today. So I thought this was kind of funny, and we'll start here. I kind of felt this way today as I'm looking out of my kitchen window. It's great that it's sunny outside, but we can get frostbite and a tan and sunburn at the same time, kind of, the way the weather looks today. Just thought we'd start with something funny before we jumped in. All right. So I just wanted to remind everybody regarding the controls of Zoom. Again, you will see that first red arrow that's pointing down. That really lets you know who is on the call and who is showing up as our participants. And then if there is a time, and I'm going to ask in a minute to respond on the chat box, if there's a time that you want to respond on the chat box, you'll need to click that on that dashboard that's on the bottom. So if you want to unmute yourself or mute yourself, you have to do that through the participant box. And then for the chatting, you need to click on the chat feature. So that's there. And reminder that if you are going to chat on the chat box, that's the way the chat box looks. And then you can see where the big red arrow is. That's where you can type your message in. So just a reminder as we go through, I keep those slides in every time just to remind folks, this is how Zoom works. So let's jump right in. If you would, I know we don't today, but if you would you please go ahead and if you're with a district, would you just type that district name in the chat box? What we realized the last time that we did this is that we were not sure of who we were reaching because we're not requiring folks to log in like with a code or anything. So if you are looking in from a district, or you're at home and you're representing a district, would you please just type that district name in? It doesn't have to be building specific, but if you would type that district name in, we would appreciate it, because I can capture that in the chat box and we'll know that that you guys were on the webinar today. So I think until we find a better way, that's how we're going to do it. Okay. So we will go ahead and start with our learning targets for today. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have Lauren, and I believe Janine is on the call now. They are going to share with us their journey at Miller with the classroom clip charts and how they've kind of moved away from that and the outcomes that they're seeing as a result of that. We're going to talk a little bit about that local example and the local examples in our digital warehouse, and then we're going to identify topics. Actually, not dates. We already have the date for our next webinar, but possibly dates and next steps for future meetings for our webinars. Okay, so I am going to throw it over to Lauren and Janine. If they would like to share their screen.
Oops. Okay. Is it sharing?
I can see you, Lauren.
Okay.
Hi.
Do I have to do the video? Can you guys see it?
Can you guys see it?
Okay, there. I'm
Okay, there.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm still. Okay,
I'm
there.
still.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, now I can see.
All right, now I can see.
And
Okay.
I'm going to move
Okay.
myself because I'm getting enough.
Okay.
Okay.
I gotta go back over that.
I gotta
Okay.
go back over that. Okay.
So we at Miller decided that
that
we didn't
we
want
didn't
to
want to
continue using the clip
using the clip
charts. We were having a little bit of an issue with kids in the classroom becoming very anxious, and there were different ways that the clip charts were being used. And so it became evident that our teachers and our staff wanted something different. So we started to look at how we could transition from those clip charts to something a little bit different. It kind of evolved over probably 3 years. I think, Janine, would you agree that it took until this year?
Process, yes.
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 I don't know, Janine, if you have anything you want to share about that.
Well, we had in between where we were and where we are now, we did trial some other things, and there were some really good conversations about what would be most meaningful for the kids and for the families, and give the teachers an opportunity to work with students in the classroom to help them at 5 years old and younger in our preschool, make that connection between what their choices were and what the behavior might be that they were seeing, and ways that we could communicate that with the families without causing more work for everyone, because we had issues with if kids weren't going home on purple every day, teachers were being emailed that, why is my kid not on purple? And there was a struggle in our school district that green was an okay place to be, and families didn't seem to appreciate that. So I think I don't know that we're there yet, but I think the system that we have now is certainly working better for us and for our kiddos and for our families. So
we first had a transition from the clip chart.
Lauren, I'm going to stop you. For some reason, I'm getting an echo.
Okay.
And it only seems to be when you're speaking or when we're both on. So I'm going to mute myself now, but there is an echo happening. Sorry.
Okay, is that better? Okay. So we had a
still getting an echo. We don't have two screens on, do you?
I don't think.
I'm going to mute myself and Janine, and that seemed to help.
Was it better?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Hopefully this is going to work this time. So we started with kind of a transitional system in between, where we had a caution ready, not yet. So we went from clip charts to that system, then to the behavioral expectations that you can see on your screen now. You should be able to see that anyways. Are you guys still able to hear me? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm not seeing your screen, Lauren.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening here.
Okay, now I'm seeing your screen. It looks like a Google survey.
Yeah, that's not the right one. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm really new to this, and so
if you go click back on the share, and it'll give you the option of what. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're back. Sorry, everyone. So we transitioned to this system after Janine and I sat down and met with our kindergarten teachers and staff. We got feedback. We listened to what they had to say. And during the first 9 weeks of the school year, we actually didn't have any system in place this year. So the expectation was that the teachers were going to be teaching what it meant to be respectful, be responsible, be a problem solver. And then each week we had a targeted skill that they focused on. And so you can see on the right, Janine and I made these classroom visuals as well as a parent reporting form that went home and was shared with parents. And each week there was a targeted skill that came from our PBIS handbook that linked to our matrix that we had made. So in the classroom, it was reinforced. It went home to parents, and then teachers were able to, really see who might need a little bit of additional support with those skills. Janine, did you have anything to add to that?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute, but I'm back.
That's okay.
That's okay.
No, it was I think it was just a really interesting start to our school year, because we, like Lauren said, we didn't have anything officially set up. And I just think there was such power in having everybody, we were able to create something that really worked for us. And we gave everybody an opportunity to do some research, and they did. They came back to our meetings time and again with, things that they'd found on Pinterest or on other websites of teachers that they followed. And of course, Michelle and Heidi, we reached out to them for ideas that they'd seen other schools using. But this way, it was really specific. And I think that's what we were missing with our old system. Kids were being moved up and down the clip chart or given a thumbs up and thumbs down. And we really hadn't been explicit in what, unless we had explicitly taught the student that expectation, how could we really hold them accountable for that? And so I think this really gave all of us the opportunity to think, well, what's most important these early weeks of kindergarten or preschool, and to focus in on those and not be having students go home with a thumbs down or anything less than green because of an expectation that they're not even aware of yet. So I think it was a really good start to the year to do it this way.
Yeah, and the teachers also shared that too, that they liked we were teaching that prior to expecting it. So once we did this, then we were able to bring our kindergarten team, preschool team together and talk about how are we going to be able to use these skills to teach the behaviors. What was the common kind of consensus among the group too of how it was going to be taught, how it was going to be reinforced. Everyone was on the same page with the reinforcement of the skill. And then we also came up with the idea of giving parent suggestions so that not only were we saying, here's what we're targeting at school, but here are ways that you can help at home foster some of these skills, or, remind your child that these are the expectations at both home and at school. And then towards the end of the 9 weeks, we discussed how we could share the 9 targeted skills and report it to parents at conferences as part of the social and emotional part of the report card and things that was going to be discussed at the conference. And so it really lent itself to not only we were teaching these skills, we were reporting it to parents, but then also discussing the aspect of the social emotional development, not just the academic side of kindergarten. And so we shared a handout on the screen here, you can see on the left that we shared a handout to all of the parents that showed them the 9 skills visually represented, and asked them to keep it posted at home, and really remind the kids for both home and school what the expectations were. And then teachers also had this to post in their classroom and be able to share. And then I'm going to turn it over to Janine, because the right-hand side of the screen is kind of her baby. She came up with this and was able to design it with the help and input of the kindergarten staff. So Janine, if you want to go ahead and share kind of what you did and how we came up with this parent reporting form.
Yeah, sure. This was born out of the need for us to have a daily communication system, feedback system with parents that was positive. And I think the sheets we'd used before were the thumbs up, thumbs down, and it really didn't give any feedback specific to what area the student was finding challenging, or what they might need to work on, or have some more support at home with. So this, we worked together as a kindergarten level team, and it's kind of cluttered, it's kind of crowded, but we took those 9 skills and we put them into a sheet which week on week the students take home. So they put it in their daily folder that goes back and forth to school, between school and home. And then at the end of each day, the students with the teacher take a moment to reflect on their day, and they will color, and there's no color attached to it. They select their own color. There's no traffic light colors, red, green is good, red is not good. And they just simply will circle, this is what I needed help with today. And it might be that they needed help with cleanup time, or an extra prompt to do their best listening. And so that way it's circled on there. Or if they didn't need help with anything, they circle at the bottom that it's time to celebrate. I had a great day. I didn't need help with anything. And we put that at the bottom. That was very deliberate too, that we didn't put the celebration at the top of the page, because we didn't want hierarchy associated with your kid had a great day, they're at the top. That's we really wanted to move away from any of those things. So that takes a minute at the end of the day, and the kids are taking it home, the parents have feedback, and so far it seems to be the best we've come up with, but that doesn't mean that it won't continue to evolve as we try it out and tweak it as we go. So this is our first iteration of this system.
Yeah, and I think also it allows us to collect some data too. So if we do have kids who consistently are struggling with one of the expectations, by the end of the week, you're seeing that, wow, maybe we need to put a little more strategies or supports in place, or maybe we need to work on some of those skills a little bit more, because you can kind of see that Monday through Friday view of how their week has gone. So I think it's also a good visual reminder for teachers too, to know maybe what their students need a little bit more of. And then the next screen here is the classroom visual of expectations. So this was developed by, actually, I think it was one of our kindergarten teachers helped kind of create this. We have, we made it into a circle, because everyone was very concerned about with the transition from the color clip charts to the behavioral expectations, that we couldn't do anything that was linear, because parents who had older kids and things in kindergarten, when we were using clip charts, might associate, the hierarchy. And so the idea came about that we could make it like a pie or a circle, and that all of those things fed into each other, and that way, if in the classroom the teacher needed to remind a student, or be able to kind of just say, remember, I need to use your walking feet in the hallway, we had a visual that had no sense of top to bottom, left to right direction, and that we could really reinforce that it all kind of came together, and that everyone, if you do these things, then you're meeting the expectations of being at school and learning. And so these are used in classrooms in different ways, and I think I don't know if Janine can share, but I think some teachers are using them with clothespins. Some people, I think, are not. So we left that kind of up to the individual teachers to kind of use in their classroom how they felt it would best meet the needs of their kind of group of students, because every classroom was different. Janine, did you have anything you wanted to share?
Yes, that's exactly how it's being used. The folks, each of the teachers has their own little, little method that they prefer. But I've seen a lot of our teachers have like another visual that goes alongside this, and it's one of those photos you might find on Google Images, and it's a student just ready to learn, sitting on the carpet with a hand in the air. And they have all of their little clothespins with the students' names on, all there with the ready to learn kiddo. And then if a friend needs a little reminder that this is, like Lauren said, let's remember our feet, our walking feet in the hallway, the clip will go on the walking feet. So then it also helps them at the end of the day when they're completing the reflection sheet that, oh yeah, I needed help with the walking feet. But what I will say that's exciting about this is that it is getting used. I think our previous thumbs up, thumbs down caution that we had probably on the go for about 2 years, it was tucked away behind anchor charts and behind teachers' desks, and it really wasn't serving a purpose. And I think this is actually, it's meaningful. I think teachers use it, kids are being mindful of it, and they'll look up, and I don't think there's no like naming and shaming going on. I think that was definitely something we experienced with the color chart. It's just a more, I think it focuses more on the teaching of the skill, and that's what we really like about it.
Yes, I would agree. I'm going to share another screen. We did a survey of our teachers, and we asked them to kind of give some anonymous feedback for some of the things that they kind of like their feedback of what they thought and kind of how they felt about the new system. And I want to share that with you guys. If I can get to it, let's see. There it is. Why is it not working?
You probably have to reshare your screen, Lauren.
Okay.
Hit that share button and whatever, if it's on your screen, you may have to hit screen again. Okay, there it is.
Okay. All right. So the responses, we didn't get too many responses, but those who did respond, you can see that when we asked them which one they found the most helpful in their classroom, no one found the color clip chart or the thumbs up caution not yet helpful at all, but all of them said that the behavioral expectations were working. When we scroll down a little bit, we can see, that the pros and cons, there was a lot of feedback from the teachers about moving kids up and down it was a lot to manage. And that, like Janine had talked about, parents wanted their kids on pink and purple. And so, one of the pros that teachers felt like it was a good motivator. However, it focused on color and not the behavior, which was the whole intent of why we moved away from it. And I think the whole management and the management of it was that we wanted kids to be able to, display the behavior, but we weren't teaching the behavior. And the same thing, if we go down and we look at the pros and cons of our other system that was in between these two, it really didn't teach them what they needed to know. And there was no, it was very gray at times too. So, and the children really didn't understand what, those words meant. And so when we get down here to our new behavioral expectations, you can see that the feedback became pretty positive on the fact that we were now focusing on positive behavior and teaching the expectations, so that when we expected things from the children, we knew that A, we taught them, B, the children were aware of what those expectations were, and C, that we could also report back to parents and they would understand that there was an accountability or a part that needed to be, reinforced at home as well. So the feedback was helpful for us to know that as we shifted, that this system was working. And like Janine said, it's still a work in process. I'm assuming that, when we come back again next year, at the end of this year, we're going to want to revisit and make some edits and some changes because it's always evolving and it's always changing. But what I personally love the most about this system is that we can use it for preschool and for kindergarten. It allows us to be able to do it building wide, and then also all of our staff, including our specials teachers, our lunch assistants, our office staff, they are also aware what those expectations are and can help reinforce that as well. So the clarity, I definitely think, improved, and in the process too, it's really aligned with our PBIS handbook and what we have what we've been trying to achieve building wide as far as PBIS. Janine, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think, yeah, I agree. It's been a good, I feel like it kind of, it sounds corny, but it's kind of completed the circle. I know we're using a circle, but it was like a missing piece for us. And I think we're getting closer to what we really want it to be. So it's been a good thing.
Yes, it has. So that's all we have for you guys. But if you have questions, we're happy to answer questions and kind of get feedback as well.
Okay, then I will go ahead and open up the chat box. Then thanks, Lauren. If anybody will give people a couple minutes, a minute or two. If you do have questions for Lauren or Janine, you can go ahead and post those in the chat box. And we will monitor the chat box to see if we get any questions. So we'll give it a minute and we'll let you think about if you have a question for what their process was to move away from those clip charts and more to this color wheel and actually teaching very explicitly the expectations. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box.
Is there anything specific you want me to share again or do?
You know what you could share? Would you share what you told me regarding your, and I've been working at the controls and I apologize if I missed it, but you had shared, or Michelle Smith had shared with me how this really changed your parent-teacher conferences. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Janine, do you want to answer that or do you want me to?
I don't mind, Lauren. We can do it together. I mean, you have experience, of course, with your preschool conferences, and maybe I can speak to the kindergarten ones if it sounds different. So why don't you go ahead? Okay.
So with our preschool, I felt like, part of preschool, actually the whole basis of preschool is teaching those social emotional skills. And so we were able to give the handout to parents at conferences and be able to explain to them the skills that we were teaching and really answer any of their questions regarding, how do we teach those things? And I liked too that it has the words. So we had the words on there that parents can use at home to kind of link home to school. And so, the feedback that we got from parents was, that they loved it. They were so thankful to have that information to be able to reinforce, because a lot of them wanted to do that, but they weren't sure what to say or what to do. And so we found that, it's really helped in preschool just to be able to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page.
We did have a question, and the question, Lauren, is how would you recommend rolling something out like this for older grades?
So because I, only know preschool, I think, I think you can do something similar for older grades, but I think you have to really know what's age appropriate, what, you feel would work for your teachers and your students. And I think getting teacher buy-in and having them help come up with the strategies and the expectations and how it works best is key. The collaboration between the staff and, Janine and I facilitated a lot, but it was their idea. It was, them having a discussion with us during our PLC meetings, saying what they liked, what they didn't like. And so I really think it can be used, but it needs to also be tailored to those developmental expectations. For kids that read, you might not need visuals, you just might need written expectations. But I think if you're going to make a system, you have to have your staff input and you have to have your staff buy-in in order to create the system that works for you. And you also need to go back to your expectations and your matrix and what you really feel like needs to be focused on and taught. Janine, do you have any advice?
I actually was nodding my head the whole time. It's that staff buy-in, that culture that has taken a couple of years for us to really get to. But I think that's so key, that it's now part of every day what we do, the PBIS piece. And I think, yeah, why couldn't it be done for older grades? It would look different and your expectations would be different, of course. But yeah, have fun making it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of older, I know a lot of kids that are older students, they use Dojo, teachers use Dojo, and I don't use that in preschool, but I would assume or guess that you can probably use your expectations, and in Dojo you could create something potentially that you could be, tracking and reporting something similar to what we do in a paper version. I'm sure there's lots of different kind of technology ways that you could come up with even an interactive form if you needed to.
Okay, I'm going to throw it out there again. I think this was excellent, and I think it really shows a different way of not using the color chart, but really using a different way to really explicitly teach the expectations, which I think is really, really kind of cool. And it seems to me, even though, Lauren, your feedback, it didn't seem like a whole host of people answered your survey. It sure was the ones that did really felt that the system was much more explicit and the kids understood it a lot better.
Yes, and we are a very small building, and so we only have, we sent it to, I think, 10 teachers, so about half filled it out, and so, getting half was a victory, so we'll take it.
Sometimes we have to take those small victories any way we can get them.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm gonna leave the chat box open. We're gonna continue with our webinar. I'm gonna leave the chat box open if any other questions come up regarding this for Janine or Lauren. But we're gonna continue on with our webinar, and I'm gonna take control back of the screen. So, Lauren, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you, and I'm gonna take control back of my screen, if I can. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Okay, so you should be seeing a slide that says sharing of resources. And I want to make sure that is where we are correct since I came back, let's make sure we're where we're supposed to be. Yep. So it was brought to our attention that maybe what would be a good idea is if we were to have I'm calling it a digital warehouse, for lack of a better term, of great local examples. And when we started to talk about this with some of the members of our PBIS team, we realized that not only would this be great for people to look at when they're implementing the framework, but it might help us when we're looking at evidence that we collect for the PBIS recognition. So what we've done is, if you see the tiny URL on your screen, we have created a Google Drive folder that has examples. Now, what I will say before I show this to you is that it is not complete yet. We still need to populate more of the folders to put more evidence in there. And the last thing is, if you guys have some great things that you're doing that match any of the items on the TFI, which is how we've organized it, we would ask that you would please share those with us so we could put them in there. But I will show you right now what we have. And it's something that we're hoping is going to be a living, breathing, I don't want to say document, a living, breathing organizational structure so that we can keep in there great examples of what's happening locally with our PBIS implementing teams in schools. So I am not going to click directly on there because I'm having an issue with my linking to my Google Drive, but I do have it open on my computer. And I will show you what this looks like. So if you click on the regional warehouse, that link, you will see that we have it organized by tier 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to go ahead and open up tier 1. And I will tell you that I'm going to go to the one folder that we have a lot populated in is the 1.4. I'm going to open that up. And you'll see that when I open it up, there's a whole host of, and it's not as much as what we'll have in there, but there's a whole host of examples of things that we've collected over the years when working with our teams. So that link should give you guys view-only access to be able to go in there and look. I believe we've set it up so that nobody can, with the exception of right now, Stephanie Denham and myself have access to change things, and then we will also give that access both to our early learning PBIS consultants as well. But you guys should have access to be able to go in there and at least look at these things. So this was a recommendation by a principal that told me this would be really good for him. So we're hoping that this is going to be something that you will find useful. We think it's going to be useful, as I said, for implementation, but also when we get into looking at when we're doing the recognition that it's really going to be good. And I'm seeing from our folks saying thank you so much for sharing your journey to Lauren and Janine, and thank you so much for doing that. That's so awesome. Again, the chat box will continue to be open if people have other questions. But this is going to be our digital warehouse, and like I said, you'll see that we have it arranged by tiers. We really don't have anything right now in tier 3 because we're just kind of starting that journey. As we have some teams right now going through training with the Ocali folks, but we do have some things already populated. So if you want to go in there and poke around a little bit to see what's in there, that would be great. But we would like you to know that this is not the end all be all and that we are going to continue to populate. And I would ask that if anybody out there has great examples that you would allow us to share. Now we've gone ahead and populated stuff in there. If you see something in there that maybe you don't want people to see, we've kind of taken what we've collected for regional recognition and put it in there. If there's something in there you don't want in there, please let me know. We don't want it in there if it's not something that you want other folks to see. But I think we've been pretty safe about what we've shared. But more importantly, if there's something dynamite that you guys are doing, we really want to be able to showcase that and keep it in here so that people can look and see what you're doing and get ideas so that they can implement in their own local environment. So we think that that's really, really cool. So that is going to be our digital warehouse. That came to me from a request made by a principal in Ravenna. I don't believe he's on the call today, but that was something that he said that he really would like to see and would be beneficial for him. So that is our digital warehouse. And again, if there's questions about that, please feel free to use the chat box for that. The next thing that we have for our webinar is we do have a poll question for you about what topic you would next like to see. I'm going to pull that up on our Zoom. This is the first time I'm doing this, so please bear with me. This is the first time that I've done the poll through Zoom, so bear with me if there's a problem, but I'm going to pull it up. And I'm going to go ahead and launch the polling. And there's about 5 things that you can answer. And if there's something other that you would like us to cover in these webinars, you can't post it in the poll, but what I would ask you to do is go ahead and populate the chat box with that, because we will get a transcript of that. So if there's other things that you would like more information about, I'll leave the poll up for a minute. We'll give it about another 30 seconds. And again, chat box is open. If there's something that you would like more information about, we can also put that in the, if you would put that in the chat box, we will also look at that. And I know everybody's not going to vote because we have SST folks on and they're not going to vote for what, what they want to see. So I'll give it about another 10 seconds and then I'll close the polling. Okay. Thank you. I will share I'm going to hit share the results. I hope you guys see them. See them on yours? Okay, so you should see the results of that polling, but we will keep in mind everything that we have on there. It looks like the 8 classroom practices seem to be the most popular. So that's good. Awesome. Okay. So moving on with our webinar, I'm going to now open it up for questions and networking. And that would be anything that you've heard here today, or if you have any other general questions that either you would like to ask another district or school building, or you would like to ask your SST8 consultants. I'm gonna mute myself and leave the chat box open if there are any questions regarding anything PBIS or regarding anything that you guys have heard today. Okay, I don't see any questions on the chat. If anything comes up before, we're coming to the end of our webinar, but if anything comes up before the end, please feel free to use the chat box to ask any questions that you might have. So our next webinar, and that does not say the right date for some reason. Our next webinar is going to be in March, and I thought I had changed that on the screen, and I apologize, I did not. It's going to be in March. It's going to be again from 1 to 2. I guess I didn't save it. I will get that information out to you guys through my network list that I do, but it will be in March. We do have a date. It's I think it's the beginning of, I think it's like that first week in March. And that will be, it looks like we're going to probably talk about the 8 classroom practices that seem to be of interest, and then we can go from there to see if there's other topics you guys want. But we're going to probably, I think at least partially during part of that time, talk about the 8 classroom practices for PBIS. That seems to be something that you guys seem to be interested in. So I will get that information out for you. Okay, and I am going to go ahead and monitor the chat box. It looks like we do have someone asking questions. We have some thank yous. And then does anyone have a good social emotional behavioral questionnaire they use at the kindergarten screening? If anybody has that, would you type that in the box and I could unmute you, or you could unmute yourself? Anybody have a good social emotional behavioral questionnaire? While we're waiting, I will tell you that, and I'm not sure kindergarten particularly, Lauren, but we do have, and I can send this out as well, we do have a screening compendium guide that is, they have it, it is attached on the ODE website for their PBIS webpage. It's called Behavioral Screening Compendium, I believe, and it's got about 25 different screening instruments. We can look on there to see if there's something that would be appropriate for kindergarten. I'd be happy to, as a matter of fact, I can actually probably show you that right now if I go to ODE. I can pull that up if you guys can see my screen. I will go to ODE. Department of Education. If you type in PBIS, the easiest way to find information there is to do that on the website. And if you go down, it should be the first link. And I believe that might be in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 behavioral health. That might be where the compendium is. Here it is right here. So Lauren, if you want to take a look at that, that might be something. You can see this is a list of everything that they have. I think there's 25 or 30 there. That might be something that you may want to look at. I'd be happy to send that out after the webinar today with information regarding the next webinar, and I can send the link here if anybody else is interested. I'm not sure if anybody else has anything else that they'd like to share, but that's the one thing that I'm familiar with. All right. Well, guys, I think we have come to the end of our webinar for today. If there's no other questions, I'm gonna log off. What we will do for you guys is, as we've done in the past, we will upload this to our YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with our YouTube channel, I also have that open if you'd like to see it. Let's see. We do have a YouTube channel that houses all of our videos. I will cut it and I'll save it. I'll cut off some of the stuff that's not essential. I will upload it to our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to view it there after the fact if you'd like to go back and watch anything that was done today. I'd also like to remind you that we do have a Twitter account. And if you would like to tweet at us, you can do so at Ohio State Support Team Region 8. Chris Farrell has really been doing a great job managing that, and we try to get information out through that as well. So that's something else for you today, another resource that you can use today. All right, guys, I am going to end it there. I'm going to throw it out one more time. Is there any other further questions? I don't see anything on the chat box. If not, we will revisit the compendium again probably next time that we meet on our webinar in March. We will look at the 8 classroom practices. I will send out the link after today, and I will include the screening compendium for anybody else who might be interested. Thanks everybody for joining us. You have a great day and stay warm.